excuse me. Just get a couple of people in. Just tilt that a bit. Right, should be good to go very shortly, but give me a second to just see who is around. But Mikey Doble is here. I'm going to do a bit of an introduction, mate, and then we'll get you in. Hopefully you can request to join the live video, or I will request you. In fact, I've added you. I might, because I've added you, mate. It might take me a while, but hopefully, fingers crossed. But yes. Brilliant. Work first time. How are you, mate? Yeah, spot on.
Yeah, all good. You?
Yeah, spot on, mate. Just got in from work.
Same as me, to be honest. So.
Yeah. Yeah, so I thought I'd bring you on just for a bit of a chat about motorsport and now your debut season's going in the British Touring Cars.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Got plenty of time, so
yeah.
far away.
I don't know where to start, but I know from like probably last year GT5 challenge in the Ginetta. I think there was a BMW Compact as well, wasn't there? If I remember rightly.
Yeah. So basically, I did karting when I was younger, but I started car racing from 2018. I think was my first season on big circuits, and I did BMW Compact Cup for 5 years, including last year. And then 2021, 2022, I also dual campaigned with the Ginetta GT5 Challenge, which was kind of a nice stepping stone from grassroots club racing. And the calendars, even though we was daft enough to do it, the calendars sort of worked out. So it allowed me to essentially compete a full season in both championships. And last year we had the fairy tale ending to the season where we managed to win both championships on the same weekend at 2 different circuits. So go figure that one.
I bet that was a challenge, wasn't it? Going from one to the other.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a day that the Saturday of that weekend is not something I want to repeat ever, although it's probably the most crucial day of my racing career and has ultimately helped me get to where I am now.
Yeah.
But it was something that I'd been dreading all season long because I knew exactly how the season was probably likely to pan out. And I tried to have a faultless season in the BMW Compact Cup, but unfortunately a mechanical error in one of the rounds meant that I would have had to have taken part in at least one race at Silverstone, which Silverstone and Donington were the 2 circuits. So I guess if you're going to have to do that weekend, those are the 2 circuits to do it because they're within an hour of each other.
Yeah.
But the point situation worked out was I had to complete one race at Silverstone to win the Compact Cup Championship, but I couldn't just not turn up. I had to score a certain amount of points to be uncatchable. And I was 3rd in the points in the GT5 with a outside chance of winning going into the weekend. I was like 26 points behind with 3 races to go. So, and obviously my dad and my brother raced as well. And we all raced together in the BMW Compact Cup last year. We had 3 cars. So my dad was having to, he got the role of couriering me from one circuit to the other on a motorbike. So yeah, we took a motorbike up there with us, and basically the Saturday worked out that we qualified at Silverstone at 9 o'clock in the morning, jumped on the motorbike straight away and zoomed off up to Donington, in which we had GT5 qualifying around about, I want to say 11ish, 11:15, something like that. So we got there in plenty of time. And then I went out and put it on pole on the Ginetta GT5, pole for races 1 and 2. So, but they actually gave me not a dispensation, but they allowed me to weigh my car and myself first before all the others, just so I could jump on the motorbike and go back down to Silverstone for race 1 in the compacts.
That's
So
wild.
there we
Yeah.
go, weighed myself, jumped on the back of my dad, stuck my bike gear on whilst everyone else was still in Parc Ferme, went out the gate, down the motorway. I'm not going to say what speed we were doing, but it was, it was very fast, weaving in and out of traffic.
Yeah.
And as per the timetable, we should have got to Silverstone with plenty of time, and we had a mechanic and my brother there who was sort of fueling the cars and getting them ready for the race. But as quite often happens with club racing, is they quite often run ahead of schedule if there's no incidents, you know. So we was on for the first race after lunch, after the lunch break, and this is the international circuit. So once you get to Silverstone, it's about a 5-minute drive just to get round the back and over the bridge on the Hanger Straight and into the paddock. And as we got to the gate, there was just a bit of an eerie feeling, like I just sensed something weren't quite right. I mean, we should have been 45 minutes before the race had started, but I could hear, you know, you get the pit sirens when there's a car going in and out. And I'm like, that's a bit weird for lunch break. Why is that happening? And I could see the marshals all out on their posts. So now my dad, we've come through the gate and we're going around the slit road at the back. And my youngest brother, he was there and he was waving us on like we was on the first lap of a race. And he was like, come on. So I'm like, oh, shit. So we now zoom down the back. We're probably almost grinding out the pegs on the motorbike coming around the corner. We've gone over the bridge. And as we've got round to where the assembly area is, all the blimmin' cars are in there with their engines running. And my car's there. And the championship organizer, who, be fair to him, he did put everything on the line to try and make this weekend work for me. Was on the radio holding back the meeting, saying they're on the bike, they're coming through the gate, you know, just for 30 more seconds. So we've gone zooming down, we've gone straight through the security guards. They've all come running after us, but we don't care. We're like on the back wheel, going back down to the paddock. Literally jumped off the bike, completely abandoned it. I already had my race gear on because I'd just done qualifying up at
of course.
So I've gone running up the pit lane like James Bond with my race helmet in one hand, you know, sort of diving in and out of the cars, to which now the cars are actually starting to go out onto their green flag lap. So I don't even remember much of it, to be honest, but I jumped in the car, did my belts really quickly because I only did 3 laps in qualifying. I purposely qualified last because I didn't want to get involved in any shenanigans up the front. And somehow we made it out there. This is the short version of the story as well. I could go on for days. But, essentially, it rained as well, actually, on the warm-up lap, just to add to the drama. But I managed to finish 20th or something, and it was enough. So we got in quickly, no time to rest, straight back on the bike and up to Donington for race 1 in the Ginetta. So now at this point, we're pretty effed, to be honest, but we're back up there 45 minutes before the first Ginetta race, and then from the pole, probably drove the race of my career, held everyone off for 20 minutes and won the first race. And that actually put me, the way the points fell, into the championship lead of the GT5s going into Sunday.
Wow.
So so obviously we've gone into Sunday. We've had a pretty remarkable day up until then. Like if I wasn't racing the next day, I would have had a few that night. I tell you. So so obviously the next day, pretty average race 1. It was a bit sort of wet, dryish, and I was quite cautious. Ended up finishing 3rd. So that put us 8 points apart, the top 3 in the championship going into the last race. So it was a proper 2009 BTCC finale at Brands Hatch. It was one of those sort of races where any of the top 3 could have won, and it was pretty much whoever won out the 3 of us would have won the championship. But I was starting 3rd, and my 2 championship rivals were starting ahead of me. So was retained 3rd for the first lap and overtook the 2nd going through McLean's on lap 1. Just as we were doing that, the safety car came out. So safety car was out. Then we had a race, and the way the points actually worked was that I could afford to finish 2nd with the guy that was leading. So I had a race, defended from 2nd. We had probably one of the most exciting GT5 races in history, and I managed to win the race on the track. However, on the track. So the story doesn't end there. As much as I would have liked it to have ended there, it didn't end there. Because of my move on lap 1, going through McLean's, just as the safety car was coming out for an incident that happened at turn 1, the opposing team put in a protest against me, saying that I overtook under yellow flags. Went to the clerk of the course, had a meeting in there, probably in there for about an hour. They deemed that I was in the right. I didn't overtake under the yellow flags. I was ahead buy the first safety car board, which is obviously what you race to.
Yeah.
They, obviously with no other option, they've appealed that decision and taken it to the race stewards. Now, I'd be diplomatic about my answer. We went up there, and I don't think they were they had over that much experience on making crucial decisions like that. But in the end, they gave me a penalty, and I'm not going into detail on the way it was brought about, but we weren't very happy, as you can imagine. They gave us a penalty, promoted us to third on the road, and gave the championship to the guy that won. So we protested that, took it to the Motorsport High Court. So we had to wait a month. It was a month of hell, going through every possible scenario in your head, with solicitors involved. Obviously expenses going out with that, and appeals and all of that, and trying to get your story straight. And it was just horrendous. You didn't know. And the Ginetta Awards were actually 5 weeks after the season finished at Donington. So we got to the court. We had a fantastic solicitor in Sarah Franklin, Motorsport Legal. If you ever need anything doing motorsport wise, she's very, very good. Could highly recommend her. And we managed to put a brilliant case together. Not that we needed it, because we were, it was ours to win. We had it taken away from us, but we didn't leave any stone unturned. She did a fantastic job to get all the facts, on the paper, and justice was served, I guess. Common sense come to fruition, and they gave me back my finishing position on the road, which crowned me the GT5 champion again. So coming out of there, it was a pretty surreal moment, and we ended up a double champion, and then obviously the rest was history to get to where we are now.
It's a bit weird, because I remember seeing you race in the GT5 Challenge on telly when they supported the touring cars last year, and I was like, maybe I could see that you were racing quite well on there, and obviously we don't see Ginetta on the support package anymore as much as we do, because they've now gone British GT. But for you to now step up into touring cars, was that the aim for this year, or were you going to do something else?
Well, I mean, a lot of people sort of commented and said, not in a negative way, but they're quite surprised to see me make the move, because it's a huge step to go from racing BMW Compact Cup at club level racing and GT5 Challenge, and then go into probably one of the biggest racing championships in the world.
I've been following it for 24 years, and I've seen all manner of things. So
then I feel it wasn't the plan originally. Throughout last year, we was actually looking. The plan was to get the touring cars within 2 to 3 years beyond GT5. Hopefully we was going to be at least in the top 3 of the standings in GT5, which is still a mega achievement. But we wanted to make a move to something that was front wheel drive and get me some front wheel drive experience, maybe win a championship. So obviously Mini Challenge, TCR UK was on the cards as a bit of a natural progression from where I was. To try and establish myself in a front wheel drive car, and then progress to touring cars beyond that. But I think where things with TCR was due to be running on the British GT package, which I think would have been quite attractive for that championship. But obviously with the Ginetta move from Toka, that spat that off of the package. So for me, that lost the championship a little bit of commercial value, because I think it just would have been good to be on that package, which is the second biggest package in the UK. Mini Challenge, I was never overly keen on the racing. I think it's very hit and miss with a little bit of reliability, but also some of the driving standards have been questionable over the years. So I wasn't overly keen on the idea, but obviously being on the Toka package was quite a big pull if I was to go into that championship, and obviously being front wheel drive, pretty quick machines. So that was an option. But to be honest, winning the 2 championships kind of put me, and my manager Will, we kind of obviously formulating the plan to get to touring cars, put me in the spotlight a bit more with the touring car teams, and conversations were being had. And no, we weren't on I wasn't on everyone's shortlist for a drive, of course not. But it was my job to kind of say, well, why not me? There's a lot of other, a lot of people have raced in touring cars over the years and probably done had a lot less achievements than I've maybe got getting to this stage. And I'm
Yeah.
always the first person to be humble about my ability, and I don't consider myself to be the next best thing or anything like that, but I have won a couple of championships, and I think that's something worth shouting about. And yeah, I mean, I think it was the momentum's there. Why not try and go all out and get a drive in British touring cars, And then obviously the conversation started with Power Max Racing, and we seemed to gel quite early on, and then it was very clear that I just wanted to make it my mission to get myself on that grid and in one of their Astras.
Yeah, which is a very outdated car itself. It's not no mean feat. It's not like the i30M Fastback or the BMW C30 that most teams are running. But
yeah, I mean, it's an older car on the grid, but I think 2017 was the first year that car debuted, but the Honda was 2018, and
yeah,
I think no one says, "Oh, the Honda's an old car." That's
it's weird that they don't say that,
yeah,
though, isn't it?
The Honda. I mean, they were saying the Astra was an old car 3 years ago. They were saying when they're going to bin it off, and the Honda's only 1 year older, and the BMW's only 2 years older. I mean, that debuted in 2019, and just because they got a few sharper edges on the bodywork, it doesn't mean that it's a better car.
No, it doesn't. No.
And I think that me and my two teammates this year, we've brought maybe, we'll see. Power Max have had fantastic drivers throughout their whole time in BTCC, but I think having two young rookies with kind of fresh ideas and a fresh mindset and the experience of Aaron and all of his knowledge coming together as a 3-car team over a 2-car team has definitely brought a buzz back to Power Max this year that maybe they haven't had since the very early days of Power Max. And having that extra data of the 3rd car, I think, has really moved us forward this year. And it's an older body, but to be honest, if you know touring cars, you know that most of the cars components on the cars are all the same. A lot of touring cars comes down to the engine. We run the Toka engine, which is it's not the best out there, but it's definitely good enough to win races. And we've got a good package underneath us, and I'm hoping that the Jack Sears Trophy is going to be settled between me and Andrew come Brands Hatch.
Well, you hope so, because you guys are flying in that, aren't you? It seems to be a lot of I don't know how to put it. Obviously I was at Snetterton this year, and I thought, the cars look great. They look very striking, and Andrew's done well first half of the season. You're second in Jack Sears. It's chasing after Dexter. I don't know how he's managed to be in the lead, because
Dexter's been incredibly consistent. I don't think he's had. Andrew and I have both had one DNF to our names, I think. And in Jack Sears, that really hurts you, because it's kind of like the points, the way it works in the Jack Sears standings and the independent standings is totally different to the way it works in the main championships. Obviously, in the main championship, you only really get rewarded for having great results, finishing in the top 15.
Yeah.
If you finish 16th in race 3, you may as well DNF, because you get 0 points for finishing 16th. You get 0 points for DNFing. However, in Jack Sears Trophy, I don't exactly know how the points work, but I'm pretty sure that if you finish last, you'll still score points if you finish 10th in the Jack Sears, maybe 5-6 points or something.
Wow.
But if you DNF, you score 0, and that's how a lot of other championships work their main points. So it definitely rewards consistency. And I think Dexter has finished every race this year, and he's been finishing strongly. Don't get me wrong. He's been in the top 3 or 4 Jack Sears in every round. Obviously, got a bit unlucky, some contact with my teammate in the last race at Alton, but he still finished the race. So, yeah, I mean, it's not surprising that he's leading, but I've had a pretty good last couple of meetings, Jack Sears wise, taking the overall victory at Thruxton, and then it was between me and Andrew to take the overall victory at Alton Park, and sadly, my power steering failed with 2 laps to go, which lost me a ton of points. Otherwise, I think we would have been leading the standings coming away from Alton. Still managed to finish the race, but I kept it on the track just to score Jack Sears points. I was probably 25 seconds off the pace on my last lap, but it was still worth crossing that line just for Jack Sears and Independence points. So yeah, I think we had a good start to the season. First half better than I could have hoped for, I think, for my first season so far. And I think that our pace is going to get stronger as the season goes on.
Yeah, you were looking quick in the tyre test yesterday. If I'm honest, it seemed to be. How was that? Because using the tyres and using the Grand Prix loop in a touring car, it's not been done since 2002.
Yeah, 2000, something like that. Yeah, I do remember. I think the last race. I sound like a real nerd here, but I have watched all the old videos, and I'm pretty sure the last race they had there was when it was either James Thompson or Ivan Muller won the championship.
Yeah, and I was there myself, actually. Funny enough.
Yeah.
So the knowledge is there, and it's weird, but yeah, carry on.
No, but I mean, the GP circuit at Donington's always been quite a significant circuit for me for many reasons. Like, obviously, I won the GT5 championship around that layout. I got my first car race win around the GP circuit at Donington. I had my only 2 pole positions in my GT5 career are both around the GP circuit at the closing round. So it's a circuit I've always gelled with, and for some reason, it feels like a different circuit to when you drive in the National. Like, I much prefer the chicane going to the left and going to the right. The one on the National circuit, it's a bit awkward. It's a bit slower. The curbs are a bit higher, and you can't quite carry the speed through there. It's never suited my eye for whatever reason. But the GP circuit, I love that chicane going the other way, and the tactical elements of the hairpins and the way you can position your car going through there in a race scenario, I think will produce some spectacular racing and give everyone a lot of opportunities to overtake as well. So I loved driving it yesterday. It's probably, I think, the most I've enjoyed driving a touring car all this season, to have quality track time, with just other touring cars out there where you're not governed by, scrubbing in lots of sets of tyres like you see in FP1 at race weekends and having to do all these different things that you have to do on a race weekend. It was just pure practice and R&D and setup work. We didn't get on my side of the garage, we didn't get the Hollywood lap time in that last little stint there because we had a couple of issues, just on minor issues on my car that just at the end of the day, which prohibited me from kind of getting that ultimate lap time. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. It's a test day. We got what we wanted to out of it. And I think that Power Max Racing is in a stronger position going into the second half of the season than we were before yesterday. So, yeah, I think we should aim, set our standards, our aspirations high going into the Croft.
Yeah. I should be there, hopefully. That's my next one.
I, hopefully.
Yeah. I should be there. It's only an hour and a half away from me, but depends if I obviously see
just
what happens.
Just the 6 hours away from me, but yeah, it's all right, carry
on. But obviously, you've got Andrew and you've got Aaron as teammates. Could you ask for more? Or do you think they're very good teammates? Do you think you said you all 3 of you gel and you work on all 3 data? You're not just having one car or the 2 cars. And is it?
No.
Does it feel like it's the right thing?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I could have really asked for a better set of teammates my first year in the championship. We all share data. We all, after every session, we all come in. We sit in the truck. Us 3 drivers and our engineers, so 6 of us, and go through. All have our turn to speak through the session, exactly what the car's doing, where we feel the car's good, where we feel it's not so good. We'll take turns doing that. Then the engineers talk through what they did in the session, what changes they made, what that did to the car, what we're going to do in the next session. And then we all confer between us and kind of use the data collectively, because quite often we'll be running slightly different setups. We don't all just go out and run the same setup.
Yeah.
We'll try different things so we can see what works. That's why you have 3 cars in a team. But yeah, even from pre-season testing, I went along to one of the test days when I wasn't testing, and that's where I first met Aaron and Andrew, and they were both just generally nice people, interested in getting to know you as a person. They're not just prima donnas and just sort of want to be there and kind of talk about himself and just I'm this, I'm that. There's none of that. The ego is very much left at home in our truck. And I think Aaron said on a couple of occasions that this is the most he's enjoyed a BTCC season. I don't know if he said ever, or it's definitely one of the most enjoyable seasons he's had. And I'm not putting that all down to us as teammates, but just the general atmosphere and the morale within the team for him is very good. And he's driven for 3 or 4 teams with touring cars. So for him to say that must mean that we're in a good place at the moment with personnel.
It seems really good because obviously you're new to the hybrid era, whereas I think was Aaron racing last year? Yeah, it was, wasn't he? So with the hybrid, I when it first came last year, I was like, okay, what's all this about? But I'd love to hear from a driver's point of view, what is it really like? Don't worry if you can't tell us exactly 100% details. Just tell us a bit. Does it change it better, or does it have its advantages or disadvantages in certain parts? That's what I'm trying to get my head around.
Oh, I mean, there isn't that much detail to go in about it, to be honest. You've got a button on the wheel and you press it when you're allowed to, and it makes it go a tiny bit faster. But you do. I'd be lying if I said it isn't noticeable. It might be a bit of a placebo because you've got the lights flashing on your wheel, so you think, oh, something must be happening here. But sometimes when you're coming up a hill or something and you deploy it, you can notice the difference. And what it also does is when you're going through a medium to high speed corner, if you make a slight mistake through the corner, such as say turn 1 at Alton Park, you're in 4th gear. If you get it slightly wrong, the car can be a little bit boggy coming out the corner. You can just give it a little squirt of hybrid there and it kind of patches over the mistake you've made at the corner, just to give you a little bit of extra speed coming out the corner. But in terms of when you really go into the data and you're looking for hundredths of a second in qualifying, it is it matters to use it effectively and use it in the right place. But you have seen that on probably more often than not, the championship leader has taken pole in qualifying with 0 hybrids. So it's definitely not making anywhere near the impact that 75 kilos of success ballast would have made. And I think that in the races, the way it's set out in terms of its laps rather than seconds per lap, it just doesn't have the effect that obviously the weight and maybe the championship organisers want it to have. Because yes, it does do something, but generally people all use it in the same place to gain the same type of performance. Therefore, it's not creating that much of a performance overlap in the racing to cause the clusters of cars and the chaos that maybe the ballast would have caused, because the ballast, it overheated the brakes, it overheated the tyres, it slowed down your corner speeds, the car didn't handle very good. You had to change the way the car was set up to obviously accommodate for the ballast, whereas with the hybrid, you don't have to change a thing. The car is exactly the same, it brakes the same, it's just a little bit more power. So in terms of getting used to it as a driver, it's pretty much second nature to me now. You kind of keep out the corner of your eye, you've got some cyan lights on your wheel that illuminate when you can deploy it. And to be honest, if you've got 15 seconds a lap, there's some tracks that you struggle to use 15 seconds of hybrid, particularly Brands Indy. You're coming across the line holding it and the ticker's still going down. You only just use it. So most places you just give it 2 or 3 seconds of squirt once you can get into the deployment zone, just to get the car moving. The lower down the gear range you can use it, the better. So when you're deploying it, I think 135 kph, which is where us mere mortals in the midfield deploy it, unless you've got obviously bots when you can use it, like if you're a Tom Ingram or an Ash Sutton. That's kind of halfway through 3rd gear. So as soon as you see that light, just give it a couple of seconds, it gets you moving. That's how you would generally want to use it in qualifying. Obviously in the race, you'll get 8 or 10 laps to use it in a 16-lap race. So you're generally getting half the race where you can use it. Now, that does cause a bit of strategy where, you can overuse it a bit at the beginning if you're a little bit in a pack, and then, your engineer will come on the radio and say, right, you'll want to know how much how many laps of deployment the cars have got around you that you're battling with. And if someone's been savvy and they've got 8, if they've got 6 laps remaining and you've got 1, you then feel a bit vulnerable because you know that they're going to be on full attack for the last 6 laps and you've only got 1. So yeah, I'd be lying if it said it didn't make a difference, but it's not a constant difference like, say, the weight would have made.
Yeah, of course.
It's nice to get into a position in a race. I always like it where you've got a bit of a breathing room and you know, you might have 3 laps of hybrid left and there's 6 laps to go. It's nice to get to the point where you can just have 3 laps of pain and get to the point where you can use it every lap, and then you're like, right, I feel comfortable now. I've got hybrid every lap from here on in. I'm just going to abuse it and use it wherever I can.
But obviously, you know, they have the option tyre as well, so they have the softs, mediums, and hards. Obviously, apart from Thruxton, because the Thruxton's hard on tyres, as we know. You know, how does that compare to like using the mediums or the softs at other circuits? You know, I know it don't sound abrasive, but how does it compare for that?
I mean, Goodyear, they make the decision overall as to what tracks will use what tyre. You know, tracks like Snetterton, Croft, for whatever reason, maybe they're easier on the tyres than some. They'll throw in all 3 compounds to obviously spice it up a bit. I mean, that's ultimately what's going to make that's going to cause the most shuffling in the order when you've got people out there on the soft tyre, people out there on the hard tyre, and obviously the mediums. But you know, tracks like Donington, Silverstone, I think they're just using the medium tyre there. I think it's a little bit too quick and abrasive for the soft tyre. But for whatever reason, they're leaving the hard tyre out of it. I know they've run the hard tyre before at Donington. I think they used to run it there before. But in terms of how they feel to drive, the medium tyre is the tyre that you do most of your running on. So most of pre-season testing is all on mediums. That is generally the prime tyre that we use throughout the season. But the soft tyre is pretty nice to use. It's like you've got that extra bit of step of grip there that you don't have on the medium tyre. You can really feel it, especially on the traction zones coming out the corners. It just hooks up that little bit nicer. It's not, don't get me wrong, it's not going to give you 2 seconds a lap, but it is a noticeable difference. But I'd say the biggest difference is going, for us anyway, going from the medium to the hard tyre. The hard tyre definitely doesn't feel anywhere near as good as the medium and the soft tyre. You know, the mid corner speed you can take with the hard tyre is probably about 5k down, if not more, than the other tyres. And what everyone would naturally assume is that the harder the compound, the longer it lasts. Yeah. And I've quickly learned that they don't. The delta performance between all 3 tyres stays the same for the duration of the race. You know, so there's no point in thinking, oh, I'm on the hard tyre, I'll pick them off at the end, because it doesn't happen. It wears out just as quick as the other tyres. So you've got to pretty much be flat out the whole race to stand a chance. But obviously, when you get to Thruxton and you can only use the hard tyre, the cars are set up for Thruxton and you've got nothing to compare it to. So you kind of just get used to it and you forget about the whole tyre situation. You know, it is what it is around there.
Yeah. Because obviously, you know, you talking of Thruxton, you know, even though you're on the harder tyre, you've got to be very careful not to delaminate it or get a puncture, as Dan Rowbottom found out in race 1. It was like, you know, did he have a puncture or was it delaminated? But then it's so, like we say, it's so abrasive on tyres. Back in the day, you know, even the Class B cars in the production had to make a pit stop in 2000 because it was that bad. But then obviously with resurfacing and whatnot, I don't know, you're the driver, mate, you know.
Well, I mean, I've never, touched wood, I've never had a puncture around there. And I haven't got to go there again this year, so I can say that. But I think obviously Toka and Goodyear have worked a lot, because it's always been an Achilles heel of Thruxton is the tyres blowing out with 2 or 3 laps to go. But I think in recent years they've sort of got to overcome that issue a bit now. You don't get the tyres blowing out like they used to. But the biggest thing that you've got to be careful of around Thruxton, and is probably what led to a couple of blowouts this year, is staying off the curbs for the first couple of laps. You know, while the tyre pressures are down and the sidewalls are a bit softer, the curbs around Thruxton are pretty almighty. You know, if you go and have a walk around there, you know, they're by far the steepest, most sort of heaviest curbs on the car the whole season, especially through the complexes. So if you go out there on that one and start hammering the curbs, that's probably what's going to damage the tyre. Not so much the, you know, the high speed nature will finish it off, but you know, you've got to be tactful about not abusing the curbs on the first couple of laps. And you'll quite often see in a touring car race everyone staying off the curbs for the first couple of laps and then easing the car in through laps 3 or 4 once the tyres are up to temperature. So I'm not saying that's what happened to Dan Rowbottom, but I don't remember any other punctures this year, you know. So we've had 27 cars do 3 races and we might have had 1 or 2 punctures. So I think versus, was it 2016 when they had to start cutting the races short after 1 race because there was a huge accident, you know, 3/4 of the race. You know, they've come on leaps and bounds with Thruxton. So yeah, you stay off the curbs for the first couple of laps and you'll be fine. That's
cool. So what's the aim for the second half, going into Croft and then onwards?
The ultimate aim of the season is to win the Jack Sears Trophy. I mean, that is the bottom line. Is I want to go to the awards evening at the end of the year and go up on the stage and win the trophy, you know. And I want to obviously go on the stage at Brands Hatch and win the trophy, you know, like some of the greats have done in recent years. That's going to be exactly what Andrew will be thinking, no doubt. And obviously Dexter and Sam Osborne, who I think were the top 4 in the championship at the moment, because it's become quite a prestigious little championship to win. You know, I think Bobby winning it last year, you know, he's had a few cracks at, you know, coming close, and you know, I can't remember exactly who's won it in seasons past, but yeah, I know that some pretty good drivers have won it. Dan Rowbottom won it, I think, in his first year with Dynamics. So, yeah, I mean, it gives us something, us inexperienced drivers in the championship, something to race for. And, you know, maybe even if you're back in 17th, 18th, out of the main points, you know, you've still got something to compete for. And, you know, you want to try and beat your rivals because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, a lot of us are in independent team cars as well. Yeah. And you know, while touring cars is close, you know, you've got the best drivers in the best, most highly funded teams, you know, versus us who've done 15 races in our career, and you know, in an independently run team, the chances of beating them are pretty slim. You know, when you've got Ash in the Napa Ford and car, you know,
he's miles ahead, isn't he? He's you know, it's like I don't know. I've seen him race and. You know, like we said about Dan Rowbottom winning it in his first year at Dynamics, it's like, what's going on? Because you've got Ash who's light years ahead of you lot, but you lot are battling in your own sort of mini championship, and that's what I like about the touring cars. That just spiced it up a bit now.
Yeah, well, there's always racing up and down the field wherever you watch, you know, so it's not all about who's winning the races.
No, it's
you know, quite often some of the best races can be down for 15th, you know, for the scraps of the final points paying positions. And, you know, often the race for 12th place as well in race 2. I think that's something that's not spoken enough in touring cars. Is, you know, for us people that, you know, we're quite often racing in the midfield, one of the goals is to try and be in the top 12 in race 2 to have a shout of a reverse grid pole, because that would be amazing. You know, if your number got drew out the bowl and you got to start a race on pole and have your shot in the limelight, you know, that's a pretty big deal. So yeah, there's always something to race for. But I think for us rookies who are obviously, you know, got nowhere near as the experience of some of these other guys that have made a living out of it, you know, the Jack Sears Trophy makes our racing a little bit more. Well, it's exciting anyway, but it gives the fans watching something to engage with. If the cameras do poke back to us, you know, not maybe if we're not in the lead battle, that we are still racing for something pretty meaningful, you know.
Yeah, that's the thing, because you know, when they brought it in, I can't remember what year they brought it. I think it was 2017. They brought it in. It's kind of like, you know, for like positions or something. I can't remember top of my head, but
I think when they first brought it in, and again another nerd moment here.
Well, correct me if
They first
I'm wrong, because
they first brought the Jack Sears Trophy in around 2013 when they had some S2000 cars still running in the
yes, it
championship.
was. Yeah,
So
it was one.
the Jack Sears Trophy originally was for the best S2000 running car.
That's right.
And then I can't remember how that, because I think by 2014 the S2000 cars were finished. But yeah, at some point, I think you might be right. I think at one point it was about maybe the most amount of overtakes or something like that. But for a good number of years now, it's been for the best non-podium finisher prior to this season. That's what gains you entry into the championship for the Jack Sears. So yeah, I mean, like I say, it's developed and everyone knows what it is now. You know, you don't have to, any touring car fan will know exactly what that trophy is all about. And yeah, it's like I say, it's a big deal for us.
It's crazy because, like, you know, you got the likes of Ash Sutton and Dan Camish and the guys at WSR and stuff like that, like competing for race wins. But surely they give more exposure for people like the Jack Sears Trophy, such as yourselves, because you know you've seen the battle for the race lead. But what they don't tell you in commentary and on telly, they don't tell you who's leading the Jack Sears. Well, they tell you who's leading it, but they don't focus on the battle if any moves making that. But
yeah,
I don't know.
I don't think they don't give us enough coverage on it. But I mean, you know, I think that for people that are involved in us and our teams, and obviously everyone that's around our racing, you know, in getting us on the grid and sponsors and everything, it's nice to have a good weekend like I did at Thruxton and Andrew did at Alton Park, and get to go up on the podium and grab a trophy at the end. You know, it's yeah, it might only be a Jack Sears win, but it's a nice experience to give us that opportunity to go up there and stand next to some of the superstars of the championship, you know. So yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of killer questions, but there might be random ones, but who knows? So, what's your favourite circuit? Not British touring. It could be British touring cars. It could be round the world.
Favourite.
It's entirely up to you.
Well, my favourite circuit, and not just for the driving, is Brands Hatch. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but it is my home circuit. I've gone to watch there probably about 2 years of my life if you added up the days I've actually been there. But you know, it's always been, I think it's the best circuit in the country for the spectacle. The racing's always great. It's a great atmosphere there. It's a great track to drive as well. I like the Indy circuit and the GP. I think the GP circuit is one of the best tracks in the world, and also especially for touring car racing, it always produces great touring car battles around the GP circuit. So overall, Brands is my favourite, but in a close second, and probably maybe even my favourite for driving, is Thruxton. And obviously, I lived up to that this year, putting it fourth on the grid in qualifying, because they made a little article about it being my favourite circuit going in. So it would have been a bit sad if I'd have qualified 23rd or something. Yeah. But yeah, Thruxton's a great track. It suits my style of driving. I'm quite a smooth driver. I'm not that aggressive at the wheel, and I think you need that at Thruxton to be quick. Otherwise, you know, you're just not going to make the car work. But I know you only asked for one, but I've got my top three in a curveball, and I don't know why. I just love driving the track. I love Croft. So yeah, it's a good little run of the season this for me. We have Thruxton and Croft and Brands, but yeah, I just think Croft it's got a bit of everything. You know, I love the technicalities of driving Croft. You know, you've got the high speed section in, you know, going through the Jim Clark S's, but you know, like that last little section, the final sector, as you're coming through the tight chicanes and the hairpin, yeah, it's quite a unique bit of track. And when you get it right, it's sort of weirdly rewarding, you know, because there's a bit of knowledge. If you've got the knowledge on how to drive that track right, you know, it's hard to know that unless someone either tells you or you find it out for yourself. But quite often the lines you take around Croft are not the ones you would look at on paper and think that's the correct racing line. So I like that about tracks, when there's something to discover and something that you know that other drivers don't. Yeah, it's a good fun track when you've got options. So yeah.
So who's your fiercest rival? People probably say, well, pretty much everyone on the grid, but that's fine if that is the answer.
I think it's got to be Andrew, to be honest. You know, we get on great. We play golf together.
Yeah.
race weekends, but at the end of the day, we're in the same machinery. We're in the same point in our British touring car career. We've found ourselves in numerous occasions this year, side by side, banging wing mirrors, cleanly, of course.
Oh yeah.
And being
it's demonstrated at Alton Park last time out.
yeah.
I saw a bit of it on telly. I was thinking, oh, here we go, teammates making contact. It's not Formula One.
We've had some great racing so far this year, and it's been respectful but hard. I think because we've always had the same car underneath us with the same, performance on the straight, same performance on the corners. It's quite easy to race each other because we know exactly what each other's cars are capable of doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think because of that, and obviously Jack Sears trophy, it's got to be him who's my fiercest rival so far. Hopefully he doesn't know that.
He might be secretly watching, and we have to try and bleep all this out. But so if you could race any car or any championship, where would you go? Apart, obviously, we know BTCC was obviously a dream come true, but is there anything else that's out there?
We're in it. I mean, to be honest, this touring cars is my dream championship. There isn't really GT racing doesn't interest me in the slightest. Like going to Le Mans, doing World Endurance, doing British GT, World GT doesn't. I would only consider doing that. I think. Oh, sorry, just 2 seconds. Yeah, I would only consider that if it was completely paid for by the team, and I wasn't going to have the stress of finding the budget for sponsors to get into it, because for me, I just don't think it's worth the sort of budgets you got to bring along. You've got to hope your amateur teammate doesn't crash, and you actually get to have a go in the car for a start. But also, it's I think the racing is there's no racing in Europe for sure that's like the British touring cars. That's why it's one of the most watched motorsports in the world. The only other championship that would really get me going if I could have a chance, but it's never going to happen, is NASCAR. I've watched NASCAR religiously since 2009, just like I have touring cars. I sit there with pegs in my eyes trying to keep awake on a Sunday night at like 2 o'clock in the morning trying to watch 500 laps of Bristol or something. But I got the bug very early on, and I've followed that. So if the opportunity ever come to do a round or two Daytona 500 or something like that, or
what Shane Van Gisbergen's done recently.
I know. Yeah,
like what the heck? That was pretty impressive to go over there and in a completely different car to what you're used to and go and win over there.
Yeah, but it's just got something. I think like NASCAR is like the American version of British touring cars. It's like it's very special to them as a country. It's got its own theme. It's got its own fan base. It's got its
own character, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think the cars make a great noise. They look fantastic. They get big crowds. There's not that many championships in the world anymore that actually attract big crowds. Like if you go back in the old days, you threw a club meeting on and you had 50,000 people there. Whereas now, in this country, British touring cars is the only thing. Let's face it, in reality, touring cars is the only thing that brings in big crowds in car racing. Like British GT might get 10,000 people, touring cars will get 60. With NASCAR, you get big crowds there. Obviously, Formula One, but World Endurance, unless it's Le Mans, you get 10 people and their dog there watching. And for me, it's brutal, but it's honest. And I like to race in stuff that's proper racing, stuff that I'm a fan of myself. And obviously I've been a fan of touring cars all my life, so I just feel like I'm. I feel like I have to go home on a Sunday night and, I've been racing somewhere else and I've got to watch the touring cars because they've been on, don't tell me what happened because I don't want to know the result. It's like that,
Yeah, well, I'd like that when I have to work a Sunday and say to everyone, don't tell me the result or don't tell me what's going on because I don't really want to know until I get home. And it's like...
I'm just going to have to go on the move for just 2 seconds because I forgot to charge my phone up enough for this, actually. So carry on talking, but I don't want to suddenly get lost.
Oh, good, mate. I'll wait till you're comfy and shut down again. we'll carry on.
I just see where it said. Sorry, I'm in the dark now. It said 10% of battery left on my phone, so I thought it was going to be really embarrassing if I end up disconnecting during the call.
All right. Because I'm going to be wrapping up very soon anyway, because otherwise I'll be talking for an hour about how to get off, and I'm sure you've got things to do.
I'm not. My life ain't that exciting in the evenings, to be honest. I'm more than happy to sit here.
So I'm getting comments saying that it's because I talk a lot. That's why your battery's draining. But no, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. I thought, well, you know, first time having a British touring car driver actually competing this year to actually come on for an interview and a chat, and I'm highly appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have you on again at some point, because I don't mind that.
Yeah. I mean, any time that, if you want to have someone come on a chat and have another review on what's going on in the world of touring cars, or you want to hear any gossip that I might be able to share, then I'd be more than up to doing that.
I don't really need gossip, because I try and get a lot of people, you know. But it seems to be like, I don't know how to put it, but when I try and make an impression for myself, because I've been doing these vlogs for 4 years, and I feel like I can engage with people, but at first I was like, yeah, it might go to plan, it might not, but it actually has gone to plan tonight, which is fair enough. So,
yeah.
What?
Excellent.
What's it like? I know I'm a fan of touring cars, but what's it like meeting the fans at every circuit? You know, do you feel like it's a huge thing that you're giving something back, like great racing? But what are the fans actually really like? You know, I know I'm a respectable fan, but just out of curiosity.
No, to be honest, I mean, my position is it's an honour to be on the British touring car grid, and it's the least I can do is to engage with the fans a bit and just have a chat with them and, you know, sign their autographs. You know, like obviously, for me last year, I was the person standing the other side of the desk in a pit lane walkabout. You know what I mean? It's like, I totally understand what it's like to be at a touring car event as a fan, because I've done it all my life. So, you know, obviously I've got onto the grid through my driving and, you know, what I've done in years past and that. But you know, I always have a joke with people saying that the last British touring car event that occurred that I wasn't in the race, I was a spectator in the grandstand at Paddock Hill Bend. You know, that's literally where I've come from. So, you know, I just chat. If you come up and have a chat to me on a touring car weekend, I'm just be there as a fan and say, yeah, you know, racing's great, and yeah, it's just like it's an honour to be a part of it, and you know, an honour to be able to give back to the fans that ultimately make touring cars what it is. Because if it wasn't for the fans, we would just be another championship. You know, it wouldn't have the attraction to be part of it like touring cars is. You know, it's, you know, what is sport without fans anyway? You know, that's why so many sponsors plow a lot of money into touring cars, because it's got the exposure. You know, so we can never get too complacent with ourselves and not you know, not engage with the fans and not do our bit for the touring car community, because, you know, we're all in it for the same thing, and we've all got different roles to play within British touring cars. Obviously, I'm in the best role because I'm driving, but you know, there's people, whether you're a fan, whether you're an engineer, mechanic, you know, you work at the circuits, you know, it's all part of being part of the show. And you know, we all love what we do, and we all love being at the events. So yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely loving every element of being a touring car driver, not just the driving, but you know, the commercial aspects, you know, being involved with a professional race team, being able to sign autographs and chat with fans. You know, I'm not, you know, I don't take myself too seriously. I'm not signing autographs thinking that I'm a Max Verstappen or a Lewis Hamilton, but you know, people want my autograph because I'm in the program, you know. So yeah, I'll happily give the fans some time. Yeah,
which I'll have to come and find you at Croft and have a bit of a chat with you if I can.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
something I need to do. I need to, chase down a few drivers and try and get them to come on here as well. Your teammates might be featuring on here at some point. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll. I'm sure if you tell them, or I'll try and get hold of them at some point and say, "Look, your teammate's been on. Why can't you?" And as I say, Mikey, it's been an absolute pleasure this evening to have a chat. I know it's summer break and you're winding down or trying to figure out where to go in the next meeting, but thank you for coming on.
Down. I was in the touring car yesterday.
Yeah, I know.
Didn't get a chance to wind down.
I know, you know.
Soon come around. Croft is only, we're in the same month now, so it's only 3 weeks or so until we're heading on up to Croft, plodding up there on the A1. So, not that long at all.
No, it doesn't feel like it, but for me, being a fan, it feels ages. But it's probably that I've got to think what to do in my time. I go to work and then do these interviews and live videos to keep my fans going. So.
Yeah, well, to be honest, for me, time goes. I'm not a full-time professional race car driver, so I go to work like anyone else, Monday to Friday, to try and keep everything going. And whilst doing that, trying to sort the commercials out for British touring cars. If anything, we're busier away from the track than we are at the track. Like doing the driving is not say the easy bit, because it's not easy, but it's the bit that comes with the least amount of thinking and the least amount of stress. To be a touring car driver, all the work is done away from the track to ensure you've got the budget to be there, and you're making the right relationships with the team and sponsors to ensure you're going to be back there next year. So my time away from the track is more crucial than when I'm there, because I'm working flat out 24/7 to try and make sure that I've got the funds in place to be able to come back next year. There's a lot of drivers out there that will want to be coming onto the grid next year, and a lot of drivers that are on the grid at the moment that are trying to keep their seat. And for a lot of people, it's not so much down to how quickly they can drive the car. It's about how much sponsorship they can bring in. So it gains them their spot on the grid, and that's what racing's mostly about nowadays. But like it or loathe it, it does come down to budget. So we're not quite at all away from the track, and obviously I'm in that kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other at the moment, because I can't give up my job. We've got a family business, a small family motorcycle business, where we got a Honda dealership. So at the end of the day, I can't give up the time doing that to try and find the sponsorship, because I still need to go to work. So until the sponsorship really picks up to where I can start dedicating more time to it, and then probably pick up even more sponsors like Aaron. Aaron is a professional driver. He does touring cars for a living, but that's obviously he's year 9 into his career, so he's had those years to kind of build up his repertoire and his business platform that he's got now. As I'm year 1, so it's a lot harder to get things off the ground. So away from the track, to be honest, no one really cares what I do touring cars, whatever they want. No one treats you any differently. It's not until you put your fire suit on that you become a touring car driver, truly.
Well, as I say, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on tonight. I hope Croft and the second half of the season goes well, and hopefully I'll bump into you at Croft when I'm there.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, like I say, come over, have a chat.
Yeah,
have a free water or something out our fridge.
But yeah, fair enough, mate. But thank you for your time, and I'm sure we'll do this again at some point.
Cool. Cheers. Been a pleasure.
Yeah. I'll leave it up to you whether you want to disappear or you want to hear me wrap up. It's up to you.
No, I've got to try and work out how to leave first. It was hard enough joining the video.
I think there's an X button somewhere.
Ah, right. Okay. Cool. Right. Cheers, everyone. I'll see you soon.
All right, mate.
Bye.
I'll see you later. Bye. So there we go, ladies and gents. We have had Mikey Doble for a chat about motorsport and, of course, the British touring cars. I tell you what, I've really enjoyed that this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully, we'll get him on before the end of the season, or we may get him at the end of the season when he's Jack Sears Trophy champion. Who knows? But yes, thank you guys for tuning in tonight. I've been Hopper's Motorsport Vlogs, and I tell you what a way this week has been. I am so proud as punch. I do apologise if any questions did get asked and we missed them, but I've really enjoyed tonight. I'm going to quickly wrap up, but I'll be liking everyone's comments later on because, you know, talking for a while. But I'll tell you this, I'm going to try and find another guest for next week or the week after. You know, these things happen, and, you know, it's great to have an insight about the British touring cars, as well as, you know, what is going to happen for Mikey's second half of the season. As I say, it's been much appreciated. I am unfortunately going to be wrapping up very soon because, you know, I've been enough talking for an hour, and I feel like I need to go and say hello to Jen, because Jen's probably thinking, you know, you got in from work and you've done an interview. But I'm glad you've enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, please, and you are new around here, please do like and follow Hopper's Motorsport Vlogs. It will help me out massively. It will help me getting more guests on, and I will see you guys Friday for the tyre test review, as well as Dalton Park review as well. Until then, guys, have a great rest of your Wednesday. Have a good Thursday. I'll see you Friday. Take care. Ta-ra.